So before every presentation and webinar at Royal Roads, it is important to, of course, acknowledge our traditional lands. We'd like to acknowledge that Royal Roads University does rest upon the traditional lands of the Wasepsum and Lekwungen ancestors and families. It is with gratitude that we live, work, and play here, where the future of Indigenous and non-Indigenous students, staff, and faculty come together. So thank you so much for being here. And without further ado, I will go ahead and hand it off to a wonderful co-host for today, Dr. Hassan Wafai. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Oriana. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us today to talk about Doctor of Business Administration, specifically about how to turn a valid research problem into a strong and competitive initial doctoral proposal. Doctoral proposal is a requirement for the admission process. So in order to really have a strong file, you really need to have a strong proposal. So I wouldn't talk about program in general, program structure, program details. You know, these things we discussed in the last webinar. This webinar more on the research proposal. So the first part of this webinar, I'm gonna go through a couple of slides, not a couple of slides, 30 slides, 30 slides, and then we're gonna turn off the recording and talk, and then we have a live chat, right? So feel free to express your ideas and we will chat about that. I don't, what I see in front of me, the screen, I see a small bar for first couple of pictures there, so I don't see all the names. So if you have a question, please stop me, and I will of course pause and address whatever questions you have. So this is the agenda. We're going to talk, as I said, about the program in general. I'm going to address a couple of common questions I used to receive about program, and then go directly how to build your initial proposal. So why is it, why Royal Road DBA? Why? And that is, I think it's, would like to see ourselves as the best. And we are actually. But from our perspective, we always say to our colleagues who will join the program that think carefully. Why do you want to make such commitment? The DBA program will help you lead change within your sector, lead change within your industry, will help you really solve wicked problems through management research, through doing that research through which you can solve organizational, community, and business problems. You will be part of Royal Road community of researchers, and you will have opportunity to reflect on your capacity as a leader and become subject matter expert, to build your currency as a subject matter expert within your field, within your profession, within your industry. A common question I always receive is, what's the difference between master degree and doctorate, DBA? Professionally, people do master degree like MBA to improve their position within their organization, to lead within an organization, while DBA program, doctorate, help you to lead within an industry, to go beyond the boundary of organization, to lead an industry, to lead a field, to lead a profession, to make a change, to become a subject matter expert beyond your organization, to build your currency. Another important distinction here between applying knowledge and producing knowledge. In a master degree, you're required to apply the knowledge you learn about, right? You learn about HR, you learn about recruitment, you learn about strategy, the strategic planning, you learn about marketing tools. You will apply these to your own context. In the DBA program, it's not about applying, it's about producing knowledge. So it's the next step. So you will learn all this and you will dive deep to produce a new knowledge and you contribute to this knowledge, to the existing literature and to the human knowledge in general. So you will have the capacity to develop new knowledge relevant to your research. Another common question I always receive is the difference between PhD, professional doctorate, and Royal Road doctorate. Just to remind you, Royal Road doctorate, the way we define Royal Road doctorate, and we think this is a competitive advantage, Royal Road doctorate is a hybrid degree. It combines the strength of professional doctorate and the rigor of conventional PhD. So the very common doctorate is a PhD. That's a common. I did PhD. And many people maybe around you, they are in the process of doing a PhD or they did PhD. That's a conventional PhD program. There's also conventional professional doctorate, which is common in Europe or in the South, in America. Royal Road doctorate, we see that brings the good from both worlds, right? Here's some differences. Specific differences here. So in terms of program design, PhD is a non-modular, normally a non-modular program. It's a research intensive, where the professional doctorate is it's a taught course. It's a very modular. It's about taught courses. It's an improved version of an MBA degree. Royal Road degree has both. The first year you have modulars, you have courses that prepare you to do the research. Then the second and third year is more about research. Outcome emphasis, right? PhD emphasize contribution to theory. So you're doing research to contribute to existing literature. And that contribution is normally through peer-reviewed articles, right? Professional doctorate, you will contribute to existing practices. You solve a specific problem, but to which extent the solution you produce is generalizable or not, this is a question. Royal Road DBA, we are expecting students to produce knowledge that is relevant to theory, but also actionable. So you need to really make the argument that your research applies to a context wider than the specific problem that you are researching. Preparation for employment, PhD, produce academics. I did PhD. The only option for me, I think, or the best option for me was to work as faculty member. That's what PhD program, prepares students for. Professional doctorate, since you don't do research, you're less likely to be able to work in academia. Royal Road DBA, since a hybrid degree, so it prepares you to work within academia and beyond academia. So almost 30% of our doctoral DBA students actually are working in academia. And around 70% of our DBA students are working in the industry. So you have the option to work in academia and to work in the industry. In terms of methodology, in a conventional PhD program, you start building the research based on a gap in the literature. In the professional doctorate, the focus is on the practical problem. Here in the DBA program, we accept both approach. If you want to start with a gap in the literature, that's fine. I'm going to talk about this in the discussion of the research proposal. It is fine. If you want to focus on a specific problem in real life, it's still fine, as far as you can connect that problem back to the literature. So we actually encourage both approach. In terms of knowledge dissemination, as a PhD graduate, you are expected to communicate your research to academic audience, and only to academic audience. That is actually the key measures to measure your success, is to the degree to which you are able to publish in academic journals. And for a professional doctorate, you are expected to communicate primarily to practitioners. In a Royal Road DBA program, we do encourage you to communicate your research to both audiences, to the academic audience and to practitioners as well. In terms of professional capacity, and we love that term, and we're very proud of that term, DBA program at Royal Road produces scholar practitioners. Scholars that are able to do research, they are qualified to do solid research, but also practitioners. They are leaders in the industry. They are not distant from what is going on in the industry. I see here Stephen Wilson asked, how is the accreditation of the DBA recognized by the Canadian University? How is the accreditation of the DBA recognized by Canadian University? The general DBA, the nomenclature of a DBA as a DBA is a well recognized. So almost, I would say almost in many schools of business in Canadian institutions, you will find faculty members who have DBA degree rather than PhD. So it's very common for a faculty in Canadian institutions to have DBA degree as a doctorate. Did I answer your question, Stephen? Stephen, did that answer your question? Do you have any follow-up? Okay, I'm gonna move on. So admission requirement, as we discussed, 7 years of professional experience, of which 5 at management level, a relevant master degree. How to apply? The online application, $131.39, very particular here. I don't know why. There are certain supporting the documents that you need to submit. What we're gonna emphasize today, we're gonna emphasize on the initial proposal, and that's our topic today. Any questions so far? Okay, so if you have a question about the admission process, about any of these requirements, please feel free to reach out to our enrollment advisors. With us, Tracy here. Tracy is fantastic. She can provide information very quick, a lot of information, and help to guide you through the process. So feel free to reach to our enrollment advisors, and they will provide you with all information. And if you wish to connect with existing colleagues, students who are doing the program, we're happy to do that. We will connect you to our colleagues who are doing the program. Okay, let me move on here. Here you go. What does the journey look like? So I like this image. I always speak about this image because the more I'm in this, the more I'm learning about how students really feel. And I would say the first, it is a liberating process. At the beginning, you will feel challenged. You will be asked to go out of your comfort zone. You will be required to reflect on your own assumptions, right? But the more you do this, the more you start to feel free. You're free from your own biases. And that is one of the challenges that most DBA students are dealing with. That is that they need to move from being advocates to being scholars. You know, you start the program with certain passion. You have certain biases that's based on your experience. The more you get into the literature, the more you learn, you know, I need to acknowledge different perspectives. I need to look at it from a different perspective. So I would say toward the end of the program, it's a rewarding, it's a rewarding journey, but it is the ability to acknowledge different perspectives and to reflect on your own biases as well as. Again, we're very proud of our colleagues who are doing the program, and we feel that colleagues who are doing the programs are the right colleagues, the right students, and we're very, very proud of them. As we said, admission to the DBA program is a competitive admission, and we make sure to recruit a student who we can support. Please feel free to, as you can see here, Tracy put a link in the chat so you can go and see our student bios, and feel free if you wish to connect with them. We are happy to connect you with any of the students that you wish to talk with. Here's some pictures from our residency. Okay, with that, now I would like to talk a little bit about the research proposal. Now, part of the admission requirement is to submit research proposal, 5-page, not too much, 5-page. Now, there are 3 key elements of this research proposal. The first element of a research proposal is to define researchable problem. Based on the researchable problem, you will formulate a research question. Second is you will explain the importance of the problem. Specifically, how the intended research will likely contribute to management practice and research, supported by key highlights from the literature. The last key important component of the proposal is to explain how the intended research relate to your career goals and objectives. So 3 key elements, three key components. I'm gonna dive deep into each of these components. The first one and the most important one, I will say, it is a researchable problem. So how would you define a researchable problem? I see Amaka is waiting in the room. I'm gonna admit her. So how would you define a researchable problem? Researchable problem first should be a management business related problem. That's related to organization, to management issue, to business issue. You know, they are, generally speaking, you know, you can define a researchable problem either based on your observation or experience, or based on the extent and based on the literature. For example, you work in public sector for 20 years, and based on your observation, you could say that, you know what, it's so hard to implement technology in public sector. Okay, that's a problem. That's based on your observation. That's based on your experience. Well, but it's so hard. It's so complicated. That's based on your observation. Or you could say, that's one. Or you could say, well, based on existing literature, and there's like a specific paper and a specific author who argue that the success rate for IT project in government is da. Accordingly, that's an issue here, and you will need to address that issue. So the source of problem either based on your observation or based on the literature. Whether it's based on your literature, based on your observation, experience, or literature, you need to make sure that the problem has not been addressed before. Right? It's still valid. It's still a valid issue. Well, for example, you want to know what are the success factor for implementing ERP system in public sector. Well, you need to make sure that this is still a valid problem. You will demonstrate that you have done some works, you have put some effort toward researching the problem. Make it clear what's known, what is not known on a high level. For example, if you're looking for a key success factor for implementing ERP system in public sector, this topic has been researched. And there are authors who wrote about this problem. You need to acknowledge that, and you need to really explain what is that you're going to add, or what is that is unknown yet that you need to research. Only include published work. Now, here's the point. Even the problem is based on your observation, you still need to support that with existing literature. Yes, you observed, you noticed that there is a problem in IT implementation, in IT project implementation in public sector. You need to support that with academic peer-reviewed articles. Consider the scope of the problem. Researchable problem should not be too broad. So, for example, a too broad problem, how to improve management practice in general, how to improve IT project implementation in general. This is too broad problem to research. Now, a broad problem is so complicated for you to define literature and to really build a research question, a proper research question to it. Also, you don't need to focus, you don't need to have a too narrow problem as one of the things I always advise is to try to articulate a problem in a couple of sentences. And that's what we call problem statement. Based on the problem statement, you will convert that problem statement into a research question. And that is a working research question at this point. Okay, before I move to the next element, the first element is the research problems. So research problem is either based on your experience or based on the literature. Regardless, you still need to support your research problem with existing literature to make sure it's a valid problem. The problem scope should be really carefully considered. We will have some examples later on about research problem. But do you have any questions so far? Should I move on? Okay. So once you highlight the research problem, the next step is to discuss why is it important? Why is it important? Is it because you've been struggling with this in the last 5 to 10 years? Is that enough? No. But part of it, it's important aspect, but it's not enough, right? So what you need to do, what the importance comes from the fact that the problem you define is under research. That means the problem is still a valid problem. That means by solving this problem, or by researching this problem, you will add knowledge that's new to existing, literature. You will need to highlight the importance of problem in your proposal. Also, you probably want to discuss how the problem relate to overall industry, how the problem really, the consequences of the problem or solving the problem relate to the society, the profession, the economy, or management practices in general. This is important that your research should be evidence-based document. Your proposal should be evidence-based document. You need to really include key highlights from literature, highlights key author that has been known in this field. Ideally, it's nice to put some thought into how your proposed research is positioned in the literature. I wanted here to emphasize, we don't expect a full literature review, and it's too early, and we understand that's too early. All what we need to have evidence that you put some effort toward researching the problem and include a few key highlights from the literature. That's all what we're looking to see at this point. Now, one of the common questions I always receive is, okay, how can we access peer-reviewed articles? Right? What I would say, accessing peer-reviewed articles, you can access peer-reviewed articles through any library, local library that you have around you. I always advise colleagues that why not go to Google Scholar? Google Scholar and Google Scholar, there are so many articles in Google Scholar that's free, that you can browse, you can read without having any subscription or membership. But all papers will have abstract. And at this point, all what we need is just like that you have done some effort toward researching the topic. So sometime abstract will suffice, will give you some idea about what is in the paper, and that will give you enough to cite. Or you probably wanted to start with the abstract, and you could select a couple of papers and that you can access when you go to your local library. But a proposal that has no references wouldn't stand out as a strong proposal, and probably will reach out back to the applicant, telling the applicant, you know what, you probably need to add a few references to support your argument. And I see a question here. Do you follow the ABA format for citation and references? Yes, we do follow ABA, but you don't necessarily need to follow ABA per se. You could follow any referencing manual, ABA, Harvard, Chicago style. We understand that colleagues, coming from different parts of the world, here at Royal Road, we follow ABA, and once you are on the program, we will focus on ABA. The key for us is that you reference every information you will use in the proposal. And I always say this is the kiss of death. If we see information that is not properly cited, the proposal will automatically be rejected. Okay, so you highlight the research problem, discuss why it is important, and then you talk about the research design. And again, we do understand it's too early at this stage to come up with a strong research design. All what we need is to demonstrate that you have put some effort, some thought toward the research design. So, for example, you could say, how are you planning to address a problem? How are you planning to collect data? What sort of data you think is needed? It's like we expect a paragraph only. So you don't need to spend like a lot of time writing a page or two, only a paragraph or two about research design, very brief, high level. Okay. Before I go to examples, do you have any questions about the research proposal before I go to some examples? Any question, concern, comment? Okay, move on to questions. So to examples. So meet Nathan Panda. Nathan is a DBA student. He's now at the 4th year. Nathan has a master's degree. He has a master, not in business, actually, in nursing. Has 15 years of experience in healthcare. Now, actually, it's more than 15. So now we talk about like 18 or 19 years of experience in healthcare. He started the management, and then he's been leading a nursing unit in North Carolina. since 2016. So Nathan, in his role as a leader in his hospital, he experienced a problem. So the problem that Nathan experienced that in 2018, 40% of registered nurses left over 2 months. 40% of active employee left in over 2 months. This is a crisis, right? Now this is it's not only happening in 2018. He noticed that is always happening. It's so difficult to retain a registered nurse in rural area. So he went to the literature to find out how, what can we do? And actually he found that there's very little study on how to retain nurses in rural area, or what factors that could help retaining nurses in rural area. So based on that, well, Nathan said, suppose a research question, that is, what are the factors affecting nursing retention in rural areas? Of course, that's the initial proposal, the initial research question that Nathan proposed. Another example, Jason Minter. Jason, he has a Master of Art in Security, Defense Management and Policy. He has been colonel from Royal Canadian Air Force. Now he's working with federal government. Very professional, spent his life in military. Now, during COVID, Jason, he used to be a pilot, served in military. So during COVID, well, like everyone, he experienced that problem about resilience in the air transport sector. There's been significant shocks in airports and travel. Everyone actually experienced, that flight cancellation, airlines laid off employees. Canadian Airlines seems like less resilient compared to some airlines that were able to survive and they still have their own crew safe and without laying off their own crew. So when he came back to that topic and he visited the literature, say, well, there's also not enough studies on why air transport sector is less resilient and what factors contribute to that. So based on that, Jason proposed the research question: how can resilience performance be improved to enable a long-term business success of air transport sector? Another colleague, Tasha Brooks. So Tasha, she has 2 master degree. She is an indigenous educator. She used to work when she joined DBA program. She's a professor at Vancouver Island University, and she will continue to be a professor in another institution as well. She's also director for Cauchan Tribes Fishing Enterprise. So Tasha, the research problem that Tasha proposed is that Canadian Indigenous entrepreneurship participation rate is 6.26 compared to non-Indigenous participation rate of 11.75. Meaning, Indigenous entrepreneurs are not able to access services available for them, or are not able, or they do not. what are the factors that prevent indigenous entrepreneurs to access services available for them? Actually, their participation rate is only 6.26 compared to non-indigenous, which is 11.65, and that is based on the statistics. Accordingly, Tasa proposed a question, is why, despite increasing entrepreneurial support, services available for indigenous entrepreneurs in Canada, lower number of indigenous people engage in entrepreneurship. Okay, now as you're building your research proposal, there are some tips. Research your passion. Now, in the 3 examples I highlighted, and you go, please feel free to go to see all the bios of our doctoral students. They are not researching someone else, passion. They are researching their passion. Because passionate research often results in thoughtful and rigorous research. I always say that, you can change your car, your house, your career from time to time, but so hard to change your professional identity. And doctorate provides you with that professional identity. So when I did my PhD, I did my PhD in technology transfer. I'm still now, 20 years ago, I see myself as expert in technology transfer. This is my professional identity. I added to that later on, that's fine, but I still have professional identity. So do research in an area that you like. And you see yourself in this area in 5, 10, 20 years until you retire. You want to write in this area. You want to publish in this area. You want to be subject matter expert in that area. That's your area of research. That's your passion. Know your motivation. Why do you want to do a DBA? It's a large commitment. It's a large investment, financial investment, social investment. It's a commitment from our end and your end. I always advise colleagues to really reflect on why they want to do the DBA program. Be very clear, because at some point you will question that. And almost all doctoral students went through this, including myself. At some point, oh, what I'm doing here? Why I'm doing this? Always. And that's when you will be, you will go through certain point where you start to reflect in your leadership style, what you want to be. Identify your competitive advantage in terms of research. In the 3 examples I provided, researchers have competitive advantage in this area. So for example, Tasha is doing research about indigenous entrepreneurs. She is indigenous researcher, and she's doing research in the area of indigenous entrepreneurs. She has competitive advantage over any other researcher, right? She is doing research in her community in the area that she is very experienced in. Jason, he spent his life in air transport sector or in military. He knows that sector very well. He has competitive advantage when he will research that sector. He has competitive advantage over any other researcher who would like to do that research. Nathan is a nurse. He used to be a nurse, and then he promoted to lead a nursing unit. He experienced the problem. He is dealing with the issue. He has access to data. Now, Nathan is collecting data. He has access to nurse, right? He can interview nurses. He can learn from them. And that is a competitive advantage over other research. So know your competitive advantage as you formulate your research program. Research proposal, as you're writing research proposal, here are some points I would like to highlight. The structure of the proposal. I always have a question. Do you have a sample like a proposal? I would say I don't have. It's totally up to you. For us, it's also a demonstration for your writing skills. We want to see how you structure a proposal. As far as you highlight these 3 key areas, the researchable problem, the importance of the research, and how the research align with your professional career, it's fine for us. It's then it is you who will structure the proposal. But my advice, there's some tips here. My advice, always use some headlines and subheadings to structure the argument. That makes it more readable. Also avoid complex jargon. And I understand that some will try to write in a complex way, thinking that this will give a feel that they are really expert in the field. No, actually write in a simple way, write precisely and clearly, explain the problem in a very clear and logical way. Length of the proposal, 5 pages. Again, the proposal is a demonstration for your own writing skills. You need to be able to express a research problem, the importance of the research, and how it relates to your career in 5 pages. Citation and references. I can't highlight this anymore. I think it's really important, very, very important. It's critical to reference and cite every information that you use. Again, here at Royal Road, we use ABA. You don't necessarily need to follow ABA if you don't know ABA at this point. You will learn that once you are in the program, but follow the style, the manual that you are comfortable with. Clarity and readability. I recommend that you review the proposal. Once you finish the proposal, review the proposal. Make sure it's a clear the structure of the proposal, the sequence of idea, as well you do proofreading to the proposal.